Welcome everyone. My name is Michael Cullen and this is DS30. Today I'm going to be speaking with Rohan Singh Rajput, who is a senior data scientist at Headspace and who is going to talk to us a little bit about working with suggestion models or recommender systems. Let's jump right into it. Okay, welcome Rohan. Thanks so much for joining today.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. It's my pleasure.
So I'd like to start off before we get into, the main topic for today, just a little bit of background on you. So kind of where you're coming from, how you've ended up, in your particular role and some of the work that you do right now.
Sure. So yeah, my name is Rohan and Rohan Rajput. I am currently working as a senior data scientist at Headspace. And a little bit about Headspace. Headspace is like an in-app online meditation service, which provide variety of content related to meditation, mental health, and different sector. And I started my journey as a data scientist from my from my graduate school. So basically during my third semester I got a chance to get an online course on machine learning from Encoding. And after that I took various other online courses and some of the other department courses to learn more about machine learning and data science. After that, I got a chance to work in a startup as a software engineer in the machine learning engineering team. So I got a chance to develop lots of application in healthcare domain related to machine learning. And after that, I got a chance to work with Ticketmaster as a data scientist 2 position. So basically, my most of the journey being data scientist, I worked a lot on recommendation system, and we can also call them suggestion models because they suggest you what the content you should be interested in. So over the time, I got a chance to work on right from initially I started to working on lots of POCs to develop on machine learning system, and then I got a chance to work on production level system to design these suggestion models for for in production apps. So currently I am working with a few other data scientists to create a recommendation system for Headspace, and yeah, that's about me.
All right, great. Thanks so much, Rohan. And so I think it'll be really, really great to get into, this discussion of suggestion models. And you know that you've had experience on the topic in a few different, in a few different roles you've had. Could you talk a little bit maybe about with Ticketmaster, were you sort of stepping into an existing suggestion model with Headspace? Maybe it sounds like you were kind of on the design side of that too. Maybe like it was a newer project, or kind of what did that look like? Maybe how did those experiences compare?
Yeah, definitely. When I started with Ticketmaster, there the company is existed for a very long time, and they had pretty stable system at that time. And they were using a recommendation system in their ongoing projects. So basically, my job was I'm coming from a lot of state of the art deep learning kind of background, where I was using lots of some advanced machine learning stuff to improve the recommendation system qualities. And there was my job to work on a as a researcher to research lots of state of the art machine learning system, and how we can implement that thing to improve the already existing model. So the requirement there was to incorporate this new techniques like natural language processing, or you can say deep learning in general, to gather lots of user item interaction pattern from the data, and using that knowledge which we gather from that data apply to that already existing production model. So it's more of in that time I was more of a kind of exploring phase, where I was exploring lots of other existing techniques, and I was trying to improve that, how we can improve that, model with more information about latent uh, knowledge we can extract from the in-house data, the proprietary data. And also, can we also incorporate lots of open source or outside world data which is available to provide a better recommendation to our user. So basically, I had to take care about lots of things. There is always challenges whenever we develop something in academia. We do not think about the scale of the model, like how big it will go, what it will impact to other system. Because if you have your model has like lots of latency, then it can provide, it can be a blocker for other services also. There are also, you have to justify the business use cases, that like why you need such much complicated model, because it requires lots of investment. So when you talk about deep learning doesn't come free. Like it required lots of GPUs. There is a dedicated cloud infrastructure you have to set up. There is lots of complexities comes as a part of interpretability, that you cannot explain why some of the decision you are taking. So those are the things I have to really take care when I was designing system for Ticketmaster. And there is when there is a already existing system in place, then you have to do lots of cost analysis also, that whatever you are developing should be should be profitable, and it should satisfy all the business metrics which you are targeting for. So you have to not only optimize like all the mathematical equation you read in the papers, but you have to like optimize the business metrics also along with that. So that experience helped me a lot to understand that how to start simple, how to start with the simple model, and how we can increase the complexity, how can we can take care about scalability of the model, how can we take care about different SLA requirements, and how can we also look into that like a business justification, that with investing that much in the infrastructure, how can we justify the business needs of that particular model. Yeah.
Mhm. That's a great point. It's a conversation I always like to get into about the very real cost of doing deep learning. I mean, like you said, like the architecture involved, the latency, the time and money involved in training the models, and always sticking with that. How can we start simple and how can we iterate? It's huge. So I'd like to, maybe from there talk a little bit about, let's say, someone is we're not Ticketmaster, right? Maybe a we're an organization or a company that is maybe looking to start building a suggestion model. Um, you know, these are like you said, very like large scale projects, right? So my question is, for a team that is new to a problem like this, where can they start looking, or like what can they sort of expect in like their the beginning phase of developing something like this? Or if you have experience maybe with Headspace and designing from a little bit earlier on, what did you find useful when you were starting out, and maybe designing things a little bit more?
Sure, sure. Yeah, that's a great question, and it's really important that we sometimes we do not have bandwidth to fail a lot, right? Sometimes we have like lots of investment going on, and as a company does not have like that much kind of investment for experimentation. Then we have to be very careful about our plan, that how should we start our design these complicated model, and how we can justify their need to our stakeholders. So the most important thing is we have to first categorize three different problems. First problem is always to understand that where we can apply deep learning, and are we ready for it or not. There could be a cases that we do not have that huge amount of data available for deep learning to train and understand all the complex latent feature from user item interaction. There could be some problems are there where we do not have like a necessary infrastructure to collect the data for our deep learning model. There is a huge problem in the industry right now currently is that like when we created these data infrastructure, they were not created for machine learning uh, models. They were created for like some different purpose, for maybe for data analysis, for maybe for transaction purpose, maybe for some kind of infrastructure need. But we have to be very careful that look into like what data available we have, and can we apply a correct technique to that particular data. uh, we can always start with a small solution. Basically, even if we start with like matrix factorization, that would be really good. If we start with like you have just like a very low level of user item interaction, and then you have to like think that like how we can phase out experiments. The big problem we see that most of the time whenever we optimize this F1 scores or like this precision recall, AUC and all, they do not reflect the like what the real-time performance of the model to our data. So we should have like some kind of quick prototyping framework where like we can like start with a very simple model, and we can put a like a very simple baseline model that okay, currently we have like we are generating revenue with like this kind of system. So suppose you have written some kind of rule based approach where you are just suggesting some of the content to your user based on some expert opinion, and we are also called it like hippos, like highest paid person opinion. So uh, based on those behavior scientists or like those subject matter experts, we have like some kind of baseline that this is the baseline we have currently, and this is the something which is working good. Now, how can we start with with our model and try to at least reach to that particular baseline, or try to beat that particular baseline with the simplest model we have. And over the time we can like iterate with that simple model and increase the complexity. Now the complexity usually comes when we include so many lots of features, because uh, there are like lots of user features available, you and we want to like capture more over the time. Like currently lots of your user are just enrolled with the email, but like later you want to like lots of their like details over the time, lot of their usage pattern, and also like from your content, that what type of content catalog you have, and maybe you're like enriching their features in the future. So you can start with such a way that like you can make a room for all this feature to expand in the future. And as you expand your feature space from user side and content side, then you can come up to the model that we will increase the complexity mod of the model if the model is not learning after like few iteration. So it's very important to place this kind of rapid prototyping or experimenting framework in your organization, so you can start simple and you can iterate and increase the complexity according to like various rules, that where you are lagging you can understand that okay, we are lagging in the data uh, analysis or preparation space, or whether we are lagging in like model complexity space. So that is like a much better approach than like just start with like a natural language like a transformer or LSTM model and then throw it to the production, and then it doesn't give like that appropriate result.
Right, right, absolutely. And this way of setting a baseline, and one that is not necessarily a we're not saying our first baseline is like a simple machine learning model, but like you said, a rule-based approach that is going to be a reasonable assumption because it's coming from like a domain expert. I'm curious to know, have you found, or do you see a role for bringing in that domain expertise into like into the way that you're designing the actual deep learning models, or even just the matrix factorization one, perhaps? Like, does that expert opinion does that help to inform maybe like what features you should look at first, or what do those conversations look like?
Definitely, there is no doubt in that our human brain is specially designed to do one of the very complex thing which is very underappreciated, that is common sense. and our machine learning model cannot get that common sense without having like too much amount of data. So obviously that is the very when we have like already existing very good model, that is a human brain, why not take advantage of it? So uh, uh, I'm a strong believer that like when we have like these expert opinions, subject matter, the people who are in the field having lots of time, they spend lots of time in that particular domain, their opinion matters a lot. Why it matters a lot? Because first thing is that take an example of Amazon, right? Sometimes you order some of the books from Amazon, and Amazon shows you lots of books related like what you bought previously. But those not always the book you wanted to buy, because if you bought a book on like Python, maybe the second book you want to like, you don't want like 10 more book from Python, right? You want like something else. And that's how like your Barnes and Noble manager comes into place, and they sometimes suggest you, okay, you read that book last time, why don't you try this one? This one is like fairly similar to that one, and you should also get or you talk with your friend that, okay, I completed this Python book, like what should I do? And he will say, okay, you completed Python book, why don't you start with like more advanced stuff or high performance Python or something like that, right? Because they know you where which direction you are going. They know you that they know you that how your how as a human your behavior changes over the time. So their knowledge is very important, because some of the behavior scientists or this people who study psychology and all this thing, they know how human behavior changes over the time. And we can use their knowledge in two ways. One is like some kind of hybrid approach, where we have like some kind of recommendation. So suppose I'm recommending you 5 things, right? So there could be, I can make like, okay, 3 things I will recommend from my subject matter experts, and 2 things can come from my machine learning model. And over the time we will see that how our this experimentation is performing. If our subject matter knowledge is not getting good result, and we are getting lots of clicks on our machine learning model, then we can gradually increase that that's weightage to machine learning model, that you next time you will get like 4 recommendations from machine learning and 1 from subject matter. So that kind of I will say ensemble approach, or you will say like collaborative approach or hybrid approach, you can say, it works very well. And second thing, they help a lot for sanity check, that most of the time we do not know that if we are going in the right direction or not. Maybe sometime like we are recommending something which we should not to particular users and all. They can help us to like validate those suggestions or recommendations, and we can filter them out like right from the beginning. One example you can say that like lots of time we see like on the internet that like sometimes we get like suggestion of something offensive, right, which is not good. But there is some human which can come there and like see that, okay, this post, this thing is not good for you, and we should like currently the situation is not going good, and like things are very sensitive, so we should filter this out. So those kind of always those kind of suggestions we need from those experts. So I feel like they have their own place in such systems.
That's a great way to put it. And I think the sanity check is always helpful, right? If somebody buys a book on Python, we probably don't, that doesn't mean we want to now suggest poisonous snakes of South America. Similar but different, right? And I like this idea that you have, sort of a suggestion model. It's not just similarity. It's not just people also bought this, right? Someone who bought level 2 also bought level 1. That doesn't mean that if I bought level 2, I might want level 1 or another level 2, so to speak. Is there a, maybe on the technical side, is this something that you have found techniques that are useful for maybe, suggesting sort of a path and not just similar or, things that happen at the same time? Is that something that's shown up on the technical side, or is that maybe something you're still pursuing, or maybe any other thoughts you have on that?
Sure, definitely, and that's a very important question because lots of time, like we see, like we start with this suggestion model or recommendation model. The simple choice comes as a like a metric factorization, like where you have user item interaction metrics and where you generate an encoding. Now, this encoding is very important. That how you define this encoding. Various people define. There are like different ways to define this encoding. That how you want to define this relationship. Some people define this relationship with the rating of the user, and like very few user actually rate the content. Like most of the user, like they just they are too busy to rate content, and sometimes rating also can have like lots of bias. We rate, we are very highly likely to rate something bad than rate something good. If you like something, you just, okay, I liked it. But if you don't like something, you'll go and like and say and write a review that I don't like it. So those kind of biases can come. And basically, when we design some system, these encodings play a really important role. That how we want to like encode our data, our knowledge to this system, so we can define some kind of interaction between them. So we have like some user and we have some items. What information we are using to define the interaction between them. If we are just using like like a single variable called rating, then maybe it won't give you the best of the result, because there are like lots of biases are there. But if you want to like include like some more extra information, like you want to include the like what review they have written. So suppose you have like some kind of text written is there, so you can like use some kind of word embedding to embed that information into that. Suppose you have like some kind of interaction going on various bases, that like the amount of time you play some content, or like that that the time of the day you are watching that content and all this thing. So the more refined information you give to your model, and the better your encoding will be, there is a higher chances that your model will able to learn those patterns, and can give you a promising result. So we have to really think about like how we define our encodings, and we have to test this hypothesis that like if we are defining some encodings, they are actually working in a real time scenario or not. So those are the thing I think it's very important. And when these things get very complicated, like when you have like very complex mapping coming from user and content side, then you need some kind of like complex model like neural networks, which they have ability to learn this kind of complex relationship, using like all the like non-linearity they possess. So yeah, that's all depend like how well you if I say in a simple term, that how well you can capture that user behavior in those weights and biases in your neural network, and that is the only thing will matter. So yeah.
Right, right. That makes a lot of sense. And and I think it also sounds like, touches back on what you said earlier about, um, not immediately starting with all your features, but building up those encodings, according to what's going to be feasible, what's going to be easy to test and rapid prototype, and then getting into the neural networks, like once you can really justify it. Something I'd like to touch back on just a little bit more. And you spoke a little bit about this, but I'm interested to hear more about it. What sort of the measuring success in that like rapid prototyping phase, right? How you can set the right metrics so that it, like you said, it's not just this is our F1 score or whatever it might be, but um, you know this is the increase in clicks, or when people are clicking, they're now spending more time on this piece of content. Um, Maybe like what that process of choosing metrics, or what that process of setting up that framework has looked like for you in the past.
Sure. So for the online, I think we have like one of the most popular technique available is A/B testing. And if you think A/B testing is something which is so beautiful in its own context, that like it help us to like so the end goal of any A/B testing is to find causality, like whether you are whatever recommendation or suggestion you're giving to your user is changing their behavior or not. And that is like something very big thing to look into, that like we do not always predict what our user will be clicking. Sometimes we want to change their behavior, and I'm just trying to say this thing in a very a simple way, that we want them to interact with our service, we want them to purchase our product, and we want them to look into that, what the amazing things we have, like what the things we develop, what the things we are selling, what the services we are providing. So we want them to actually explore that catalog, we want them to actually engage with that service. And for that, we have to be very sure that what the thing we are looking for. If we are a service based we are subscription based service, and we want them to be spend their time on the platform, that is the end goal we have. That is the only way they will renew their subscription, otherwise they will just cancel it out. If we are a product based company, we want them to buy our product, that's why we get the profit, that's why they will come back again, that's why they will like our platform, like Amazon. uh, so basically we want our user to change their existing behavior to what in their and our best interest, and that is a mutual interest, right? We want them to get, if they come to our service or platform, they are coming with some kind of expectation, right? And it's very important that we understand that what metrics we want to optimize. So if we are correctly optimizing the metrics, so if we are just looking for some wrong metrics, it happens all the time that you just looking for engagement, like your users are spending your time, but if you're not actually optimizing unique visitors, there are only 500 your customers, only they are spending time, your business metrics is not going up. You're just they are only 500, and they are just if they paid for the annual service, they will be there for the entire year. So we have to correctly measure that, what we say KPIs, like key performance indicators, we want to optimize for that particular thing, that like if we want to increase the number of unique visitor on our site, or if we want to sell our product to more number of people, we want to increase our customer base or something like that. Those things has to be taken care when we do our experimentation design, and when we want to design our models also, that this is the particular metrics we are looking for, and that will be make impact to our business metrics, that will make an impact, so our shareholders will have stakeholders will have some kind of confidence on our services. And that's how we are not going in a wrong direction, we are chasing a right goal. So those things are very important. That's are very specific, they depends on business to business and problem to problem, but identifying them is a very challenging part.
Yeah, and it sounds like, and this is something I see all the time too, like what you're saying there, it's so situation dependent, and you need to make sure you're tying, to your business metrics and to the right ones. And that doesn't happen in a vacuum. So I would imagine that, you just need that a lot of crosstalk, like all the constant conversations, getting people involved between your data scientists, your product managers, domain experts, whoever it may be. So that you don't end up chasing the wrong, thing up the wrong tree or down the wrong hole, or I guess whatever the saying might be. Well, Rohan, I'd love to keep this going. I think it seems like we could both talk all day about this.
Yes,
But the 30 part of DS30 is that we're supposed to stick with around 30 minutes. So
sure.
I think we're going to have to wrap things up. So before we close out, if there's any last maybe things you might want to add, or I like to often wrap up with maybe any tips you would have for someone looking to get into data science as a data scientist, or someone who works with them, maybe things to keep in mind or look for if they want to start exploring the topic of suggestion models.
Sure. And yeah. So that's a really great question, and that question haunted me when I was a data scientist. That what should I do to like get my first opportunity, and uh, we have to agree that like getting a first job as a data scientist is extremely challenging, because like there is the space, there are lots of things available in the market. So first thing is like the job description. Sometimes they are like so extensive, like people want, sometimes people don't want what they want, they just write everything. Like you want Spark, SQL, and you have to have like the project management skill, and you have to have like Java, Go, Python, every language on the earth you should be there. And they don't know what they want from data scientists. They just want a data scientist on board. They have their data, and you have to solve this problem without asking any questions. So that is not the good approach sometimes. But if you really want to like go into the data scientist path, and if you want to like stick to that particular path, it's very important that you start with like some kind of your after doing this all the academic projects and all this MNIST, or like a different Titanic data set, or like house prediction, spend some time making something, some project which is which is something you can say it's your own. Like the problem you want to solve, which come from your knowledge, come from your intuition. You spend your time on it, you spend on your time on like data collection process, you spend time your data processing process, you spend time on your creating model, and you spend time on like creating a report or justification, business case justification for it. And that's people avoid it a lot, because end of the day whatever you create you have to justify that it will work. So try to spend some time to like make it a habit that like after completing your entire project, write a post on Medium, write a post on LinkedIn where it can reach to a wider audience, right? Write something which you want to show the world that like, okay, I found this particular problem, I managed to solve this problem, and I think that this problem can help some organization to solve their problem. Because already in the lots of organization we have lots of problem, and we want to, we want more people to come here and solve our problems. And they have to have that kind of problem solving skill, which only comes after doing like lots of this like this practices. So make a habit, like whenever you complete any kind of this project, try to write some kind of business justification or post or something documentation wise, so you can explain it this to very simple term to anybody. So yeah, that is one of the advice I would like to give. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great. I could not have said it better myself. Well, once
Yeah.
again, Rohan, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's been great talking to you, and thanks again for your time.
Thank you so much, Michael.